might ask, oh, why would you not want us to send you your plans, Greg? Well, the reason why is because some traders, when they're just starting out, they're a bit precious about their ideas, and they're a bit territorial, and they could send an idea to you and then get funny about the fact that you're going to run off and do something with that idea. Now, with all due respect, in the most humble way possible, some of the ideas I've already got, I think you're going to be challenged to match them. Okay, that I have on some of my systems, so I'm not bothered by that. But that's why I don't want particularly to encourage people sending them through. But if you want help with it, go for it. Okay, so here's the gap. Who here has built a system on the gap? And who here has not? Please put a no if you haven't, a yes if you have. R3S3 should be done. Your gap should be done soon. KB says she likes the R3S3. Excellent. Let's have a look at the gap. As you guys know, I was wanting you to bounce it off the gap, and we were applying them to the 15-minute. What I'm going to do is we're going to cheat. With the 15-minute, you've got 4 times many more candles as you do on an hourly chart, right? Okay, some of you have found that the R3S3, because of the signals are not that frequent, you can see you'd almost need to go from an automated approach to catch them. Okay, yeah, fair, valid. If you do spot one manually and you have a plan around it, no worries. The gap might be more appropriate as it applies or offers more opportunities. And tonight we'll be moving into 3 MAs. Okay, see here how one thing you guys said was it's hard for you guys to backtest a lot of this stuff and crunch it all through, and you find where your eyes look is really hard. Well, we're going to cheat. For this same section, what I want you to do is go to 60-minute, and you'll notice your gap doesn't work, and you'll notice up the top it says that the gap's not supposed to be used on hourly. Well, the gap will be 15 minutes inaccurate, as in it'll be out by about, price will have moved within 15 minutes and it won't account for it, but we can still make it work, and I'll show you how. And I do this sometimes. I actually wrote a system on it today based this way for the purposes of tonight. Now, if you set this thing from 1600 to 1700, can everyone see what I'm doing there? So I've changed the settings of my gap, so it's at hourly points from 1600 to 1700, and then I'm saying, okay, now my gap appears again. Okay, but because it's not drawing itself on the last 15 minutes, where it's drawing itself from is at the end of the hour instead. Okay, it's going to be sort of 15 minutes out, but in the context of the hour, it's not too bad. Okay, so now I've got my gap on hourly, and it's just easier for my eye to spot things. Okay, I'm spotting a drop right there, and I'm spotting a bounce here. And what I'm going to do now is suggest to you one idea we're going to look at. Okay, let's say we've got a gap, and we've got a green candle that goes above and below the gap. So I'm going to put a big G for a green candle. Then we have 2 candles, and they can do whatever they want. Okay, but then we have a red candle, so I'm going to say this one's red, and the close is below, so here's my close down here, is below the gap. Now I find that significant because the gap is an important point, and price should be just bouncing off it or giving it some real respect and moving either side of it or passing through. But when I've got a green, so we're moving right on up and we're above and below, then 2 hours has gone by and we're back down. Well, something's up, something's not right, and it's a red candle. Okay, so that for me is like a reversal. So I guess I've sort of invented a weird candlestick formation where the 2 middle candles can do what they want. They can be any type, but this first one's very significant. Green above and below, so the close has to be above, the open has to be below, and on the red it has to have concluded below, like that. And then we'll go look for a few of these. and then if time permits, we'll put them in a time window. And I'm going to give you the complete details of this particular example, so you won't miss a thing. Okay, so I'm going to go find examples of this. Now that I'm on hourly. Okay, so that could be an example right there. When yours loads. It's a green, it's above and below, finishing above. 2 candles went by. And then here I had a red one below. So it's significant because it's looking at the gap, but it's also a 4-hour price formation. So it's a 4-hour formation. Very nice. And then it's red and it's back below. Okay, so something's not right. Something's not adding up. And then look what happens. Boom. Down. Okay, so now we'll go look for another one. So here, this isn't one by the way, but I'm going to explain why. It's green. I've got my 2 candles in the middle, I don't care what they are. And then this candle, which is the 4th one, it's not a red candle, so there's no valid signal there. What about here? This one is valid, by the way. Can you see that one? Where are we? Okay, so that's my green, above and below. 2 candles, random, I don't care what they are, and then a red one. And the red one has finished below. Now I find this really significant because the gap, and I'm going to keep saying that word significant for the next 12 weeks or however long we've got left, 9 weeks. Okay, drum it into you. Because in my opinion, 99.9% of traders don't get what is and is not significant. Out of interest, did you notice in the free session, I gave a system which is actually pretty good, the MACD crossing the 0. That's pretty powerful if you use it on a significant chart. If you use it on hourly, you'll notice I gave it on a 377. Okay, now you'll smile because I couldn't give 2 hoots for a 377 FESX. It's nice, but you know why I don't like it, don't you? 3 months ago, different to now. 3 months before that, different to then. Okay, I just flatly can't trade like that. So this is significant, right? You got the gap, you can see, yep, that's a very important point for the reasons we discussed. We've adjusted it, it's sort of 15 minutes out because we're lazy and it's on hourly, so we can just, our eyes have got a lot less to look at because you guys are telling me your eyes, you just don't know where to look and you find it hard to take all this time to backtest some of these things. So what I'm doing is I'm breaking it down. I'm allowing you to cheat, putting it on hourly, so your eyes have got less to look at. And also with hourly, I don't care what the system is. If you're looking at hourly, you should be able to backtest an idea over 2 years in about 35 minutes, probably, skimming back through. And what's excellent about manually citing it, I know it's not fun, but in doing that, and while you're looking for one thing, you'll actually spot another. And you wouldn't have if you were doing things with fancy maths, okay? Because you're manually citing it, you'll spot so much more. And I continue, my best system still I spot manually. Okay, it's really a great way to do things. So there it is, up, down, okay, and then we can see that it's moved. Control F2, gotta get used to that. From here down to there. Does Ninja allow you to go back 2 years? Oh yeah, absolutely it does. Ninja will allow you to go back on your FX, John. It'll allow you to go back to mid-2006. Make sure that when you connect with your FX, you set it not to use the GAIN servers, but the Ninja servers for historical data. On what time frame? On any time frame. Yeah, absolutely on any time frame. As an example, I'll do it now. Days back, I'm going to go back 800 days. Click OK. Hopefully we won't be waiting too long. That's about right, isn't it? 365 days a year, 3, 6, 7, 8, yeah, 2.5 years. Okay, it's loaded up. Let's see how far back it goes. Alrighty. And okay, I'm at the end of 2006. No, I'm mid 2007 at the moment on USD Japan. But I do know they do go back to 06. Even if it's mid 07, that's still 07, 08, 08, 09, it's still 2 years. Okay, so there's an opportunity there. Okay, one more question from KT about loading historical data. Okay, here's one thing. I think I'm answering your question correctly, KT. If you have your computer open, then closed, then open, it is possible that you could have a gap in your data. So here's a gap, for example, just here, between this point here and this point. Now that's a natural gap, that's meant to be there in the data. But for whatever reason, your computer might be open, and closed, and it goes to the historical data server to get the data and brings it back. But sometimes the way it actually displays its charts on your computer so fast is it first looks at its your local hard drive for its historical data bank, and gets most of its data from there, and then if it needs some more of it's missing, it'll go get it remotely. And obviously when it's just loaded up, it needs to get what's missing from the previous time you loaded up. Now there are times when, for whatever reason, the way you do it, it can actually miss the fact, it'll think that it's got it and doesn't, and there'll be a few candles that are missing or whatever because of that difference. Now, to fix that, it's very easy. Just right click and see this, reload historical data, Control-Shift-R, and what that does is it completely wipes all record of Euro USD on your computer for the candlestick data history, and goes and gets all fresh data for as long as you want from the remote servers and puts it back on. Okay, I think that's what you're asking. Okay, so this is the thing we're trying to look for here. Now, as you know, you would screenshot, write some comments about that, and then go measure the next one. Okay, let's go look for another one. So obviously what I'm first looking at is, and there's one right there, right here. So it's green above and below, just. Left 2. So that one there is green above and below. And 4 candles later, it's a red candle that closes below the gap, which means we would go from here down. Okay, so that's another one there. So I'd add that. Now, as you know, there's so many ways you could build a system with the gap, and I know some of you have been building some great systems with it, where it bounces off in different ways. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to pick something that was a bit bizarre and say that, and show you can still build a thing. Now, this idea that the candles above and below the green one, you wait to and then you get a red one. Why did I think of that? I don't know. It literally popped into my head sort of this morning around lunchtime, and I built my whole system today for it, because I wanted to just build something totally bizarre around the gap that still works really well, just to prove to myself that there's many ways you can use it. Okay, here's another one that meets the criteria. That's green above and below, 2 candles do whatever, and then the red one where the close is below. Now obviously that's, when it's confirming, it's quite a distance away from the gap. Now I want to just do a check on how your brain is thinking when it looks at a signal like this. Does your brain look at that and say, oh, that one didn't go much further, it's a dud? Or does it look at that and say, okay, our rigid way of entering means we didn't get much out of it, but there was still a decent move in how price is interacting to the gap and then moving away from it. Okay, because if you've got that second attitude, you're going to get so much more out of your signals. Bob says that he's been looking at something quite similar. Excellent. And for this reason, guys, please don't send me your trading plans. I want you to just suck as much as you can out of my brain and build 6 or 10 systems better than what I showed you. So is everyone comfortable with what I'm looking at? Can I have yeses from everyone that you're comfortable with what I'm looking at? Yep, good. I've got all yeses. Okay, because I don't want to go too fast. Remember, tonight's about just slowing down and breaking it down. How we did that and how you will do that this coming week is you'll throw your gap on hourly. You'll do it by adjusting your times from the 600 to the 700. You'll accept that because of the gap I've given you, it's going to be slightly out, but from these big chunky hourly candles, it's not going to make much difference. It's still going to be generally in the pretty much the right area for what you're writing. Well, I'll show you in a little more detail what I put together. So you go through that, you build up your little library, and you look through all your systems, and you look at how far they went and how much heat they gave you, and then you say to yourself, okay, now that I've got a collection of these things, like palm cards, I can see how they've been going. Now I'm going to show you a little trick. I want everyone to do this if you haven't done it. I'm going to go over again how you change the gap so it works on hourly. Here's what I want you to do. Everyone bring up your indicator box, please. And then click on the gap. And then I want the range begin time just to be 1600 hours and the end time to be 1700 hours. Okay, and they're both at the hourly points. And that is appropriate for the hourly. Okay. So I hope everyone's got that. That's very important. Okay, now this is key, this is gold. This is what I really want you guys to get. So I'm going to have a look at this system right here and just write how much heat it gave me. 95.21, 94.31, 35. I'll just go off 41. 21.41 is 80. Okay, where's my F12? So I'm going to say I got 80 and it just went basically nothing against me. I'm going to say 2 pips against me. Okay, so that's my shorthand that you know so well. And that's, remember what I was just showing everybody in the previous session, in the public session. But remember, with the shorthand there's another element to it that's so important. I'm going to say that this happened on the 1 o'clock candle. Can you see that? So I'm actually going to edit this, put a space or two and just put a 1. Now this is key for your shorthand. So now I can see it went 80 for me, it only went 2 against me, great, so I can have like a 70 profit and my stop. It doesn't matter what I said that, I'm going to get what I want out of this. And it happened at 1 in the morning. Now when you write shorthand like that, dropping down, what you might see, and it'll just absolutely jump out at you, is you've got shorthand of profit, of stop, and of time it occurred. And you can look at all your dud ones and you can say, oh, as I look through my list, okay, so just pretend there's a list dropping down under this number of all the different trades you've looked at. What you'll see is all the 9 o'clock trades, they've all failed. Interesting. Well, that's market open, isn't it? And it's an emotional open, and that's when it's like a dam and the water's been built up, and then they just open the gates and let all the water out, and it just comes flooding through. So never mind the technical analysis with the little this and that in the indicator. Like, there's just money flooding in. And so you can see that and you go, oh, look at that, all my 9 o'clock ones don't work. Oh, okay, well, any trade that confirms on 9 o'clock, I'm not going to take those. So your shorthand is a massive help for deciding what trading window the signal will fit in. Hugely important. I'd say it's mandatory, really. The shorthand without that isn't a big help, because you know my view is that you're not going to build a system that works through the full 24-hour spectrum. Okay, let me give you some more details on this now. So that's my example. We've discussed how to put it on hourly, and we've done that to speed up your backtesting. We're going to talk about a 3MA system right at the end when I'm done, and that's going to be your next thing, because I want to move on to another system as well today. Well, I'll take a vote and see. So by now you should all have a gap system of your own, but I'm not convinced you have, and that's just because you guys all have different time commitments. I've shown you a simple one I've got from First Principles, and I've reiterated the importance of putting the time at the end of your shorthand, because you might just see a particular time of day they're all failing, and you wouldn't have known that unless you write it in that simple fashion. So here's my approach. I've said, just for short signals, I'm going to let you write your long signals if you want. Confirmation candle has to be red, confirmation candle has to be below the gap. I've chosen a window of between 2 AM and 11 AM. And 3 candles ago, that was the 4th candle, it must be green, half above, half below the gap. And 90 pip profit, 90 pip stop. If at midnight I'm still in the trade, I hop out. And that's how that little one went, which is not too bad. And with a few other filters that I'm yet to teach you, I can actually make that a lot better, but I didn't want to apply them because I'd be applying things you haven't learnt yet. So very quickly, there's 41 trades over really the last 1 year and 8 months, 1 year and 9 months, so 1 and 3/4 years. 73% success. Maximum stop-outs in a row is 2, maximum winners in a row is 8. You've probably noticed with all my systems, the number of trades it gives is light on. And yep, that is, and I make no apologies for it, it works. Simple as that. I'll keep telling you what counts for a successful system is the amount of time it's worked over more than the signal count. Okay, so that's that system. Let's take a vote. I hope everyone understands that. And with systems like that, that's some of the type of things I'm going to be putting out in that Twitter. I hope you guys are getting it. I'll try and give you some more notice. Because most of my systems, I do build them on hourly. You will have up to sometimes an hour of notice. I'll try and send out and say, hey, you've got an hour of notice coming up before the signal's out. So you've got that notice. Did anyone catch the 100 pip move on USD Japan? Did anyone get that? That had an 87% chance of winning. But I didn't put that in the Twitter or in the tweet, as they're called. Because if I did, I'd have to jump through a whole heap of hoops from compliance reasons to say, okay, now you've made this statement, you need to back it up. Yeah, some of you saw it, but you didn't want to take it for 2 reasons. You didn't know what it was based on. And so it's sort of like having someone else pack your parachute when you jump out of the plane. It just feels weird. I agree, I can't do it. I can't take someone else's trade if I don't know what they're thinking behind it. Interesting. But yeah, what I want to do is build up that library, the archive, so you can see. So tell me if you want the archive a little different. So everyone's got that trade move. We're about to discuss another one. I'm just going to take a vote. Is everyone okay to start learning a completely new system? You've got this one, you've got your homework with this, and then I'm going to give you more, which is the gap. Yep, okay. So you've got this gap one down pat. Oh, we've got all yeses. Brilliant. And I'll keep telling you, I'm deadly serious about you guys becoming good and successful and profitable traders. So please do ask questions away. Let us know anything we can do. Okay, I'm putting on 3 moving averages. So your 3 moving averages are, and some of you who have worked with me before will know what they are. I want 20, 50 and 100 simple moving average on hourly. We're going to look at the ES first because it's my home playground. And then we'll look at this on the others. Now I read an article recently that said moving averages are dead, here's why. I thought, oh, that's interesting. But then I did notice too that when it was all said and done, they still keep the moving averages on to observe price pretty much because everyone else still has them on. So yes, people have gone on to do weird and wonderful and very sophisticated things with their technical studies, but they still, on hourly, keep a 20, 50, 100 just to keep an eye on what's going on, and because everyone else still does as well, it's still like an old family favourite that everyone still uses. And I think it'll always be the case, and if you look at the history of where the 20, 50 and 100 come from, you'll see that's why it is. The 20 on hourly, for example, pretty much represents the average for the day, okay? With a pinch of salt, there's 20 hours in a day-ish, sort of, okay? And the 50 and the 100 are significant as well. Now, you could choose other indicators, as I explained in the e-course, it doesn't matter, but the bottom line is you got to pick something and just stick with it. And you'll all spot the same market move in your own different ways. Now, there's some different things we can look at here. But what I want you to do, the very best thing you can do, and I think it's probably the last thing you will do, but I'm going to try and talk you into it, is thumb through one candle at a time and just observe. Remember I told you the story way back of the little kid watching his dad change the tractor tire, and he was able to explain how the tractor tire was to be changed because he wasn't emotionally uptight and frustrated and angry with the tractor tire. He was just sitting on a log, sitting back, observing. and he was able to absorb so much more and think logically. Now, if you bring up your hourly ES like this, or if you're into FX, then we'll do the same with FX. And what I want you to do, this is your homework, you must do this. You'll get far more out of this than just racing through and quickly trying to build a system, is just to thumb through one candle at a time, and just before you thumb through to the next candle, try and pick where it's going to go next. So here I am now. Let's do it. We're in a down move because the 100's on top, then the 50 is next, and then the 20 is down the very bottom. So the fastest is on the bottom, slowest is on the top, so the general mood historically is to the downside. This candle on my very right has just broken the 20. Okay, so I'm looking at that now. Immediately in my head, because I've done this a few times, is I think, okay, I think price, it has left the 20. It's like a train station leaves one station. Well, it has to arrive at another station sometime, right? So I'm curious to see if it arrives at the next station, which is the 50, which is the grey. Now, it didn't quite get there. So I'm curious to see, will it arrive at the next station? So when I press to the right, interesting. On the next candle, it arrived, all right. And it did hit that level. It also went back down to the bottom one and tested it at some stage, but it didn't go below. Now, that doesn't surprise me either, because I've got so much out of this already. As you can see, I get excited about this. Okay, so here we were. We've left the station. We went up 4 points, but at some stage we've also been back down to the 20, but see how we just touched on the 20 perfectly. Well, that's no surprise, because after you break through, see, we were below the 20 before, we broke through it. Now, it's no surprise that we came down, touched on it again. It's called Trader's Remorse, just to check we're happy that we're now on the top side, and are we going to stay that way? Yes, we are. Okay, no worries. And the train station still needs to get to the next station. There we are there. Now what we've got is you can look at the candle type and say it's a candle type of indecision, doji, rejection, with the red side, interesting. What's it going to do next? Well, what time of day is it as well? We're 9 in the morning. Aha, interesting. Look at that. So that 9 o'clock candle would represent the 9:30 open, and so an almighty burst. It's like a jolt. I'd liken it to getting your fist and punching a steel bar, right? Just an almighty jolt, and that's what I see in that candle. It's just that. So then I'm going to go to another one, okay? And look at that. See, that was a jolt, and then bang, she drops down. Okay. Now, does that surprise me? No. What's the overall mood? It is a down bias. Now, have a look at the colour of the moving averages. I've got the fastest colour on the bottom, the bright one, which is the orange. Then I've got the grey, which is slower, and then the really dark colour, which is slower. So put them, always colour your moving averages correctly. Okay, now it's moved on to the downside. So I've only sort of pressed to the right 2 candles, but look at me, I'm like a pig in mud. You'd think I was commentating the races. Okay, so now where do I think it's going to go? Well, it's 10 o'clock. It's a red candle. And while I think it is going to drop, I also know that a 10 o'clock red candle on a negative bias can actually be traded up. And look at that. There's our next candle. I did not know that was coming. Okay? I've looked at this so much that I can just pick something like that. Now, that wasn't much, but that's 5 points. Those of you who know the S&P, that's serious. That's $250 to the upside. You'll go, Greg, how did you know that a 10 o'clock candle when it's red can be traded, you can trade against it to the upside like that? How did you know that there was going to be a little bounce like that? Well, I question if you've been listening. Well, of course you have, but there's a lot to take in. Do you remember on our workshop there was the monkey? And remember we had a really simple monkey system? And we said we're all dumb monkeys. We're just going to have a 10 o'clock trading system. And remember I said if there's 3 moving averages and the candle's this, it does that. If it's that, it does the other. Well, that's actually that right there. As we were clicking along, we just happened to run into Greg's suggested monkey system in the workshop, which we'll touch on in a later session. But that's where that came from. Okay, so now I'm up to the next. Now what I want you to do, this is your homework, is to go through, and I'm pressing the right button on my keyboard 1 candle at a time, but I'm commentating what I think the market's going to do next, hour on hour on hour. And because I'm working with these 3 seriously bellwether moving averages, I mean they're a big deal. What happened 6 months ago, what happened a year ago, price is still, you'll see it'll slowly change its personality over the months, but very gradually, and you can just change with it, and you'll feel it sort of changing with you. You say, okay, so the 10 o'clock doesn't bounce as much as it is, still bouncing, but less, and more. Okay, It doesn't just sort of change instantly tomorrow. Okay, so then you go again. So what I want you to do is go back a year and just thumb forward. It'll take you an hour, guys. It'll take you an hour. Go back a year and just go forward, a candle at a time. Keep an eye on what time of day it is, how it's moving with the moving averages, and just get a feel for it. Click forward, stop for about 5 seconds, think, okay, the structure of the candle, the color of it, where it is, what's the overall bias, then I'm going to go through to another one. Now, when you've done something like that, then when you're going to build a system with them, and as you can probably guess, there's no end of signals you could build with it, it's a pleasure. It's a walk in the park and it's a lot of fun. But because you've done it. And it's like an athlete going for a big jog around the oval. Remember, for an athlete, they have to have that routine and they have to keep going for that jog to stay fit, don't they? And they've got a very strict way they do it. Well, as a trader, I consider it like a sport. I consider myself an athlete. I think a good trader is as rare, and I say this in a positive way, as a movie star or an Olympic athlete, in that they're very rare. They really are. I don't call people who run trading education companies in that category. I don't. I think they're essentially salesmen. Sorry, but it's true. So you guys are, with me and Brendan, becoming athletes. Now, if you're going to become an athlete, you've got to do exercises like this. Now, I still do it. I will do it tomorrow. In fact, because I've given you the homework, I'm going to do it with you. Tomorrow, I'm writing it down. I'm going to grab my ES60 minute, and I'm going to go through and in my head just commentate what I think I'm going to do next, because it's been a while since I've done it, and it'll just refresh myself on the MAs. Okay, and then I'll feel great. So I'm just going to thumb through another one. Okay, what's that tell me? Right there. More indecision, now slightly red, and then we're falling away again. Honestly, how much do I think my bounce can be? My bounce, it moved back. Okay, it tried to get back up, but it couldn't, and then it failed. And you can even look at this red one and see that, and say, oh, if it was going to have a go, it would, and now it's turned red, and it's moving on down. And you thumb through, and away you go. So you keep on moving down, and you just watch it as the train leaves one station and gets to the next. And then you can start building some cool ideas. Now, with that, I'm going to suggest to you one or two systems as well, just to get you thinking. Okay, so that's your homework, but have a look at this. Can you see 3 sides? See this? This is my 20 moving average, that's one side. And the next side is a 100 here, and the third side is the 50. So the 3 moving averages have come together to make an up arrow. Can you see that? Now where they concluded was here. That was where the final part of the arrow was. There. See that? Now, I'm curious to know, every time I see an arrow like that, how does price go? Now it's a crazy and a bizarre idea, but how does it go? Well, let's draw lines and see. That one went up a bit, and then overall it went like that. Okay, let's go look at another one. There's up to 13 points, up to 7 points of heat, or if we wanted just to take a small chunk out of that, it was 2.25 of heat for 3.5 profit. Okay, let's go look for another one. We need the 3 parts to the arrow. There's none there. I'm going to go look for another arrow. Now I wrote a system around with the arrow with the 3 sides to it for fun, but I don't actually use it. This one here, see the arrow's a bit small. There's 3 sides to it, but I don't use it. Okay, there's one. I just want to... It's just something so bizarre. I'm sure you've never seen anything like that taught before, and I just wanted you to really think. So you don't just do all the same moving average systems everyone else has ever mentioned. See that? You got the 3 sides, the 20, the 50, and the 100, pointing down. Okay? And where did it conclude? And the first thing it did is went against you. But it's like this arrow pointing down at you. Where should you build your systems from? So that's, I mean, okay, there's another one there. Can you see that? There's your 20, 100, and 50, arrow pointing down. Right there is where it concludes and it drops away. So that's really sort of where it confirmed, or there, depending on how you want to say the edge of the arrow has happened. And a 12-point drop. So bizarre, crazy, weird, but after you've spent enough time running around the track, you start to see these things. I would suggest starting with the 20 MA. I would give some serious attention to the orange one, the 20. The 20 MA on hourly is very dynamic, but it's a real key thing, because when price comes up to the 100, because it is a 100, it represents a general price it represents the price average for the last 100 hours. Okay, but it's the last 100 hours. So do you think it's going to precisely turn on a dime? Well, not so much. On the 50, perhaps, but on the 20, on the last 20, because it's the last 20 hours and it's still very significant, it's a more current representation of price moving back to the mean. So therefore, it's probably going to be more responsive in how it bounces off it. So it bounces off them all and interacts with them all. But for a nice entry and a sharp move and a turn on the dime, right, you're going to get that on the 20 more than the others. Now, there's this idea that, oh, you're using 3 moving averages, therefore it's lagging. Yeah, it's lagging, all right. If you wait for all 3 to point up, so it's a buy bias, like for example here. So here I've got 100, then I've got my 50, then I've got my 20 for the first time after this cross. Yeah, that was a lag. I mean, the real up move was through there. And yet it took to here for these moving averages. In fact, you can say the 100 is lagging by 100 hours. You say, why would you want to use 3 moving averages if you're an intraday trader, and certainly one of which is 100 hours lagging? Well, if you want to use them like that, yes, they're lagging. But if you're using price action bouncing off it, there's zero lag, because you're looking at price in real time, bouncing off the historical average of where price has been in the past, and the fair value price is over the last 20, 50 and 100 as represented right now. So you're trading real time as can be with price and historical price mean. Okay, big difference. But if you were just trading MA crosses or 3 MAs in a row, yeah, I agree, completely laggy. So this, for example, is a real bounce like that. Okay, off the 20. The next thing is time windows are so important again. Give that some thought. A brilliant time of day is in the Australian afternoon, and that suits us all really well. So if you want to trade from 6 at night to about 11 or 12 at night, that's wonderful. And also, as you're doing that exercise I was saying, thumbing through, eventually you'll be able to speed it up a bit too, because you'll only be interested in, say, your time window. So you'll only be interested from 3 till 9 Eastern Standard Time, which is 6 at night to about 11 at night. So what you'll do is you'll play that game I was telling you to. You'll thumb through 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then you'll go speed through because you don't care about the cash market, because I don't want anyone up at 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning trading. There's no reason to do that. And then you go to the next day, and then you'll do it again. But don't do that the first time you run around the track. Run around the track properly first. And the next interesting thing, I don't know how to explain this thought to you, but I'm going to try. I really firmly believe that the pre-market times, the Australian afternoon, the Australian night, is when the big players are quietly getting in, and then the cash market happens, and there's lots of huffing and puffing and blowing and big wind and flexing of muscle. And through that and towards the end of that, the big players are just quietly getting back out again, and then it's done, right? And you can look at that and you say, no, all the big players are where the most liquidity is, and they're getting in and out in all that cash market. You know, the US, when the US economy day is going. No, sorry. Yeah, there's a lot going on, obviously, because that's where all the main liquidity is. But if you want to know what the real traders are doing and the big guys are doing, they're quietly getting in the quieter times. They're reading what the market will do in the quieter times, and then they're letting the cash market take it where they think it's going to take them, and then they're hopping out again. Is the penny dropping? Wow, hello, click. Interesting stuff. Okay, what I'm saying is before the cash market has even begun, I'll spell it out to you, the big guys have already decided where it's going to go, have already taken their positions for where it's going to go, and then it's the liquidity and the excitement of the trading of the cash that just takes it where they generally expect, and they're done. Okay, and something that at the last minute that might change their opinion, which is 8:30 news, but even then they've still got an hour of the pre-market session before they hop out. And I'm beginning to see this more and more, or it's becoming more real to me with the FX market as well, especially even with the USD Japan trade I called. Price was just sideways, and it had been rising, and it was just, for an hour it was just quietly sitting there, for another hour it was just quietly sitting there, and I'm convinced, absolutely convinced, that there's just more and more short positions being taken, even though it's just sitting here, and there's just going to come a point where when everyone's done, it's just going to fall through the floor. And it's not because a whole heap of traders step in and push it through the floor. The big guys are all just quietly getting in. They're ready for the move to already happen. Okay, now the reason I tell you that is I want to make you guys better traders by telling you what to think of and what to look out for. So that's that done. I want you guys to all have gap systems by next week. I want you to have run around the track a few times with this, and then we're going to look at it a little more and build some systems with it as well. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm done.